We're continuing with the idea of from the book Getting to Know Yourself, page
I got
70.
you read the placebo?
Oh, you got it?
Yes.
Awesome! It's going to change your life. It's going to change your life. Okay.
I gotta get that. That's gonna be a good read.
So we're continuing. We were speaking before about the whole idea that we have to learn to create a quietness in us. If we want to connect to our soul, to the most divine part of ourselves, is not by looking out there. It's by creating a space within us. And just like at Har Sinai, everything was quiet, so too we have to create a quietness in our mind, in our heart, in our desires, in our thoughts, and that's when we can start to enter the subconscious, which is the deeper part of our soul. And we're going to see it's going to lead to really find out true happiness. So, he says, page 70, identifying and separating the thoughts. How can we uncover the world of alone in the soul? We must first find the time, even if brief, to seek out solitude. And one of the hardest things today is for people to be alone. Now, when I mean alone, when you're with your phone, you're not alone. Because you're going to get a text, and you're going to get an email, and you're going to BBM, you're going to get a Twitter, you're going to get a Facebook, you're going to get a phone call, you're going to get something's going to come. Something is going to disturb you being just you and yourself, and you and God. So you have to disconnect, like I showed you last time. I don't know, I'll show you that, to connect, disconnect. So you want to disconnect, to connect to God, you have to disconnect from technology. But what happens next? We can be alone and have all of New York inside our heads, right? He's a guy from Israel, and he says New York all in our head. It tells you how people think of New York. It's just like crazy, like lights and things, Times Square. We may be alone at home without contacting anyone or reading a newspaper, and even turning off the cell phone. But we think and think not only about our street, city, and country, but about events all over the world. Even though we are alone at home, we are not really alone. In fact, the whole world is in our heads. This is worse than a cell phone. The cell phone is near the ear, while these thoughts are inside of us, in our mind. To attain the world of quiet, we must learn to quiet our thoughts. We're not referring here to learning to quiet the mind during the time of commotion, or when we are particularly distracted or angry. We're talking about an ordinary day with ordinary distractions. The first step is to set aside 2 minutes a day. In these 2 minutes, the one who is training himself shouldn't read anything or talk to anyone. He should just be with himself. At first, he should give free rein to his thoughts, even though he will be immediately pulled somewhere by them. He might think about his wife, his children, or his job, each person according to his situation. Let's say that the first thought that enters his mind is about his job. He should then think, what am I thinking about now? About my job? Is that me? No. So I am not alone. My body is at home, but my thoughts are in a very noisy place. And let us remember that the Baal Shem Tov always says, you are where your thoughts are. And the Baal Shem Tov really meant it really literally, to the point that if you're a big Kabbalist, you can affect things in other places in the world just by having your thoughts being there. But we're not going to go into that. But the idea is like it's as if physically you're not in that place when your thoughts are not here. So my body is at home, but my thoughts are in a very noisy place. He should first identify where his thoughts are, and then whether his mind is calm or noisy. Is his mind with his eye, or is very far from the eye? We are not yet considering positive thoughts. We are only discussing how to quiet the thoughts through a slow and gradual process. As mentioned, this will occur through Hachna and Havdalah. The Havdalah is the das that defines the proper place for each thing. I'm going to go just deep into that now because I want to cover. When a person is aware of a thought and its relationship to him, whether it is close to or far from his true self, then he can see if he's truly alone or not. One can be in a secure room, like here, but be open to the whole world. He must notice the content of his thoughts. Is the thought in the category of the alone or far from it? Okay? If the thought is very far from him and it is not a time of special pressure, he can move his mind away from the thought with relative ease. He can calm himself and say, there is no need to think about this. It will not help. I already decided to have 2 minutes for myself. If any time remains, he should give his thoughts free rein another time and then note again where his thoughts went. Let's say that he started thinking about his bank account. Crazy. He should then ask himself, where am I? At home or at the bank? Am I alone or with 12 bank officials and 70 people online? He should think to himself, I am very far from where I need to be. Okay, so you let yourself go in your thoughts and you try to think, okay, where am I? And where your thoughts are, that's where you are. Say, that's not where I want to be. I mean, until basically you reach the moment where you think, I'm here. And the main thought is that goes out is, I'm here and I'm with myself. So, this is self-awareness that comes from Das. Are these thoughts related to me or far from me? Are they part of the I or are they part of the garment, the body, which is not the I? No, it's very important. Did you ever watch the movie Host?
No.
No wonder you have so much struggle in life. Basically, it's a science fiction thing, and basically the idea is that there's kind of UFOs that tries to control the brain, but the person is fighting to have her own brain, meaning her own thoughts, and it's the fight between the true I and the one that tries to replace it, like almost like conscious and subconscious. Your subconscious, which is more affected by the body and your surrounding, things, I'm a doctor, or I'm a rabbi, and that this is what I do, and that. But the truth is, that's not who I am. That's like the actions I do, and I'm a soul. And my soul is a piece of God, and that piece of God is here to elevate the sparks of holiness that exist in the world. I mean, you see how it's two different things? I'm thinking I'm this rabbi going the world and making a job so I can have, inspire people and make money and to have a family and all that. That's very nice. But you're thinking on the body level. Those are not the real thoughts. That's what society tells you. And I drink Coca-Cola because, I saw 1,000 images of Coca-Cola. That's not who you are. That's what society has made you become. But you have to be careful of the true self and not true self. So, we mentioned before that there are three parts of a person: thoughts, feelings, and actions. They cannot be totally separate from each other because even when we perform an action, there are thoughts and feelings involved. We have been discussing a separation among feelings, but that is clearly based on the separation in the thought process through the power of Das. Only through separating the thought can one separate the feelings, not by working with the feelings directly. Okay, meaning if I want to feel happy in life and I want to feel the soul, it starts here. The central the place of command, right, is here. That's where you start everything. If you're able to separate your thoughts, then you have the ability to separate your feelings, the negative feelings or the feelings from the outside that prevents you from feeling just what's in there. Right? We're bombarded with feelings all the time. Most of the time negative. News, radio, this happened, and then we're bombarded by this, and we're affected by that. But the truth, the key is to connect to the true inner feeling. We will try in the next chapter to analyze this further. We will examine the world of thoughts, feelings, and actions so that one can disconnect and not identify with a negative manifestation. This is a gradual and slow process. May Hashem guide each of us in the proper path. So I want to just go straight to some stuff that is going to point out a little bit more to say. So we must understand that the work of the avodah, the service to rectify all the elements of evil, can only come from an appreciation of the inner holy soul placed in us by Hashem. Without this, even if we imagine that we are exchanging evil for goodness, such goodness is an illusion. It may seem positive, but in fact we'll have only exchanged evil for evil. It's going to become more clear of what that means. Okay, this is a very important thing. What's sadness? Sadness is when there is no soul. Here's a simple example. Everyone is familiar with the feeling of sadness from their own life experiences. What does a person do when he feels sad? One might go to a restaurant, another will look for something new that might rejuvenate him. He might go to places that can neutralize the inner emptiness he is experiencing. Where does this mentality come from? From that sense that I am sad and I need to deal with it. It's unpleasant to remain with this sadness. I must escape from it. Does a person consider the source of the sadness? Sometimes. He must ask himself, why am I sad? Because today I lost money, or I was fired, or I heard news that was not especially uplifting. He attributes the sadness to an event. It seems to make sense. Before he lost his job, he was happy. Then he opened the mail and saw that he was fired, and he became sad. It seems to be a clear correlation to the reason of his sadness. But this is a very limited perspective. We can compare this to a person who arrives at a busy street and suddenly finds himself in the middle of a traffic jam. He honks, getting more and more frustrated. He cannot understand why they're not moving. Someone in the next car tells him, you think that all of these people in the other cars are fools who suddenly decided to stop? There must be a logical reason which you can't see from your vantage point. If 100 cars have stopped, there must be some interference further on that explains it. We can't see it from here, but when the traffic clears, you'll see it. So, a person tends to look at life without seeing past the next millimeter. So I always tell people, keep the big picture. Keep the big picture. If you keep the big picture, actually you look at your life, it's actually pretty good. Remember that our thoughts are 70% of the time negative, because we have been influenced by the world to think like that. That's a big problem. I'm pretty sure that if you go in a country where there's very little news, people are much happier. So if he was fired, he will certainly be sad. But let us try to look more deeply. True, the immediate cause of the sadness was the notice of termination of his employment. But what is the source of this feeling of sadness? He knows that other things saddened him before this day, and that there are many other sad people. Many other sad people. Where does it all come from? Is the soul also sad? It says in the pasuk, in Divrei Hayamim, it says, strength and joy are in his place, in God's place. When a person is in the proper state, there is no reason to be sad. Sadness comes from an ignorance. Listen to that. This is precious pearls. It looks like I'm just reading something from a book. This is the secret skies of life. Sadness comes from an ignorance of the truth of who the person is. This is why I'm always happy, because I think I'm awesome. Because I'm a piece of God. Not because I became like that. God, he took a piece of himself and he made me. I'm so thankful. Like, it's amazing. But you're all like that. And as soon as you lose that thing, you become sad. Because you think you're the body, or you think you're what people tell you are. Or you think you're... There was two... I think she was first. Yeah.
It also helps us think that, to remember that everything happens for a good reason. There's always a good reason behind it.
Right.
Because like you said, when you look at the whole picture...
Right, then you realize...
Yeah, you realize that it's probably for a good reason. You don't see it now, but it'll come shortly. You'll see it soon.
Correct.
What about, like, a death in the family? What does that have to do with not knowing this?
If he really lives with the neshama, he will never be sad. Where is their true sadness? When a person dies, He knew that, you were going to come as that quick. When a person dies and the soul leaves, there is only a body, and the sadness then is absolute. The time when you're only allowed to be really sad, besides when you do tshuva, the only time you're allowed to be sad is for 7 days after you lose a body. Gradually you move from that sadness, but that's why you're sad, because now there's a piece of God got removed, and if there's no piece of God, then there's no happiness, because the only happiness is God, and your soul is a piece of God. That's the happiness. You understand? It's amazing. Actually, there are no laws requiring sadness. There are only laws of mourning. But a relative is sad nonetheless. It is the saddest day when a close relative has just passed away. Sadness applies when there is no soul. What is death? And you understand that actually the idea of mourning, we don't mourn for him. He's a soul. He went. He's happy. He's in heaven. He's a soul. We mourn for us, that there was a soul there, which is happiness. And there was a removal of a person that is a soul that was happiness. There's less happiness in the world. There's less soul in the world. There's less God in the world. Right? That's really the thing. Sadness applies when there is no soul. What is death? There was a body and soul. The soul departed, only the body remains. So when is the most intense period of sadness? When there is a body without a soul. When we think of this, we should understand that if there is more soul and less body, there is less sadness. But if there is less soul and more body, there is more sadness. If so, when a person is sad, though the feeling seems justified, he shouldn't just think of the catalyst for the sadness, but of the source of the sadness itself. As we know, sadness comes from the element of earth, the element of physicality. If one sees himself as a soul and not a body, he cannot be sad. But since we see ourselves also as a body, the world is filled with too much sadness. That's the whole point, how people don't understand how to do tshuva. They think, oh, I'm bad. How's God for me? I did this. I am that. You don't understand. You're not that. Oh, and you didn't do this. The real I, which is the soul, cannot even start sinning. The real I will never sin. The real I, the soul, is pure, is a piece of God, and if you will try to sin, you will be crying and jumping in the fire before you do a sin. But you have a body, and you think that your body, and say, oh, my body, so you got trapped. Your desire got trapped, you lose control, awareness of who you were. Say, oh, I did that, my body pushed me to that, I am this. No. You have a garment around your soul that pushes you to do the thing, and that's the balance, that's the struggle, to learn to have that soul, holy piece of God in a body, and to influence the body to become the soul. That's what Ramchal says, that you can go with your body in heaven, because the job of the soul is to elevate the body to become spiritual and to want what the soul wants, and then you elevate yourself, and you go in heaven, Olam Haba is with your body on a high level. Yeah.
Okay, so if we are our soul, and everyone has a soul, and a soul is a part of God, and everyone has that part of God, does that make all of our souls the same?
No.
Okay.
Meaning each soul has...
There's 600,000 souls or something
right, yeah,
like
there's
that?
600,000 root souls.
Okay.
Meaning every piece is like a diamond. Are we all part of the diamond? Yes. But every facets, the way is a diamond beautiful. If you take a raw piece of diamond, it doesn't look like anything. It doesn't look precious. It almost has no value. The real value of diamond is when you shape it and you cut it and you have that beautiful, those facets, and where the light comes in and it goes in all those different things, expressing the light in many different ways. And we are all part of the diamond. We're all diamond. But each one has to reflect something different. We are the Jewish people, we're the diamond. God is the light, the soul is our light, and it goes into the diamond, and we have to reflect the light in different ways. And you have to find how you're going to reflect light of God in this world. What's specific to you? So we are, it's in essence, we are the same. In a way, we're all the same DNA, Adam and Eve, we're all part of that soul. But you have to express it in a way that is unique. You have a specific mission, you have a specific face that is different than anybody else. Right? And that's okay. Let's jump. The Rambam writes that happiness and pleasure do not come from outside a person. Now it makes sense, right? It's not, but from within his own heart. That is where pleasure and happiness can be found. A person may feel he's lacking joy and peace, and that once he gets the object of his desire, he will have joy and peace. This type of joy and peace is due to acquisition. It is, and it comes from the fact that from the act of acquiring something that is not something one does not yet have. It is outside. If I think that happiness is there, that's what my body is telling me. It's escaping. Really, it's like the Yetzer Hara. The body is pushing you. Really, the happiness is here. And we're like, I want to be happy. I'm going to buy ice cream. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to do this. I'm going to... No. I'm going to get married and I'll be happy. I'm going to have this job and I'll be happy. I'm going to ice cream and I'll be happy. I'm going to go to Six Flags and I'll be happy. I'm going to sleep and I'll be happy. No. It's right there. And that's the mistake we make. If we learn to be happy alone, so to speak, then you'll be happy with anything. That's the biggest mistake we make. We always look outside. And but this in technology, you saw that. How did people try to look for answers before? They used Hubble. And first they have those big lenses to look outside, and then we use the microscope. Now we understand everything on a tiny level right here, that an atom here can tell you the secrets of existence all over the world. If you understand dark matter, dark energy, then you understand everything what's happening out there. You don't need to go out there. It's all here. God gives us the answers here for us to find out. So on the other hand, there is a kind of joy and peace that comes from merely existing. Chazal said of this, who is wealthy? The one who is happy with his lot. Who Misamiach Bechelko. Obviously, they were not referring to one who has all his needs fulfilled. Rather, they were speaking about a person who is lacking in material things and is completely happy. But how can he be happy? He can't cover his monthly expenses. His son might be in the hospital. He might have other big problems. How then can he be happy? This type of joy comes from existence itself. It is not a joy based on acquisition of material things. If he makes a calculation, he might find that, in fact, he lacks more things than he has. But he's happy because of his existence, not because of what he owns. What is joy of existence? How can we be so happy about it? So, I want to skip parts because I want to try to, we're almost done. For our purpose, what is the natural state of a person if there are no external factors? The answer is that a person was created to be intrinsically happy. He will naturally be happy if there are no opposing factors. Such factors might place one in a state of sadness. This may be correct, but it is a very superficial attitude. The real reason more people aren't happy is because they want more things besides their own existence. If we would need a reason to be happy, we could claim, why should I be happy? I'm lacking this and that. But if man's intrinsic nature is to be happy, as long as he does not make himself want things, he will always be happy. The Ratzon initiates the removal of joy from a person's thought. The truth is not, as it seems, that one feels he's lacking and therefore is sad. It's really the other way around, that because a person wants things, he feels a lack, and that lacks remove his intrinsic joy. Joy is natural, and if one will just be careful not to destroy himself, he will be happy. And that's why meditation is the whole thing. It continues later, I don't know if you all have time, but that's why meditation is so important, is that you're making sure that nobody's looking for the place? Okay. Is that our natural state is happiness. Meditation helps you refocus on who you really are, on where the real happiness comes from, on existence, on life itself, of the real reality of what's there. So when you meditate and you focus on the inside, you reconnect to existence, to how things are the way they really are. And when you touch that and you feel that, then you're happy. The problem is, as soon as you want to desire, and that's why he speaks about living without a desire. As soon as you desire something, you're removing your thoughts from who you really are. You're removing yourself from that intrinsic happiness, and you feel a lack because of the desire. So one of the first steps is really stopping to desire things, and because you will be happy without desire. We think that desire is what leads us to want things to be happy. It's not like that. Yeah.
Without talking about happiness, in order to achieve certain goals, in order to get what we want, don't we have to have that desire first? We have to imagine.
Yeah, but we're not talking about happiness. You're right, and you're allowed to have desire for spiritual things, but there's a difference if someone is not happy and he has desires, and someone who is already happy and has desires. What's the source of my desire? Is my desire because I'm sad, or is my desire because I'm happy, but I'm trying to do something with that happiness, right? It's almost like saying each one of us is a source and a fountain of joy, of light. And my desires that I should have should only be to just share, to go out and make the world better by giving. And actually, there's a whole chapter later on about that we're here as givers. If your whole life is focused on giving, right? I mean, first you have to find that happiness. But instead of giving, then you're going to just increase that inner happiness, because giving makes you happy, right? So he gives an example of how you can live without the desire and being happy. So how does one avoid destroying himself? Low self-esteem, all the stuff. He must live in a world without desires. We are referring here to personal desires, but the person should ultimately desire to perform the will of the Creator. So here's an example. A person is walking down the street and sees an advertisement for a luxurious apartment on the 19th floor of a high-rise with an ocean view. He then notices an expensive sofa in display in window of a furniture store. He immediately imagines himself sitting on the couch with a newspaper, calm and comfortable, in his apartment on 19th floor with the ocean view, and the thoughts keep coming. What is his error? He thinks he's lacking the apartment on 19th floor with an ocean view and his expensive sofa, and believes that if he gets it all, he will be calm and observe the waves from above. The world will be wonderful and he will be happy. But really, he should stop himself for a moment and think, my situation now is better than that. I don't want these things because my peace will be robbed from me once I want them. It's like, that's why meditation is all about peace and quiet. As soon as you want something, it makes you rush to go. We think that, which he speaks about it also later, that we have to live on extremes to be happy. And he's teaching you that no, the way of the Jew is that you can have that same, you can experience 6 flags just by not moving. You can experience the intensity of life just by being, by feeling your soul. You understand that what is God? God is the highest possible pleasure you can experience. If God is everywhere, why don't I feel Him? If I'm a soul which is a piece of God, why don't I feel that extreme pleasure, what I call spiritual orgasm? Why don't I feel like, wow, I love living? Because I have a body. The body is like a filter to my soul. It prevents me from feeling the full me. And that's why I can make mistakes. So the goal of us is to feel really who I am and connect back to the true I. And when I do that, I'm going to increase the level of happiness. I bring basically more God into me. I reconnect to my soul. And then you're going to start feeling. That's why you have stories of those big rabbis who just want to sing all the time. They dance like crazy because they just experience their soul. Most people aren't aware of this peace. Whenever a desire comes, they try to fulfill it. If they don't, it's not because they feel complete without it, but because they cannot acquire the object due to lack of funds. I don't have the means, so I can't fulfill my desire. But if I would have the means, I would certainly run to buy it. The person still experiences the desire, but he cannot act upon it. He's not aware that uprooting the desire will uncover a more peaceful and happy world. This is our great mistake. So, how are peace and joy revealed? The only way is if a person knows that he's a soul, which is absolutely perfect, and that the one factor that destroys joy is the desire for things. Well, it's very simple. Again, he's repeating a little bit the same concept, but it's all connected. And he says that as long as a person has, and that's where meditation leads you, as long as a person has not entered the world without material desires, he has no place in the soul to understand what this means and what pleasure can be there. Even if he does understand, he cannot sense it. But when he experiences it, he will feel the joy and pleasure and realize that it is worthwhile to forego all desires just to receive this inner source of incomparable pleasure. You want the highest level of pleasure? Stop running. It's right there. But it takes time. It's an experience because we're not used to it. It's like you're trained to be with yourself, trained to be alone. Right? Okay, almost done. Like he says just that here that the goal of life is giving, because basically when you give, you reconnect to. So then here he gives a few stages, and he goes almost in practical meditation here. So what's the stage 1? The stage 1 on how to connect to meditate and to connect to your soul is analytical thoughts. So I'm going to read what he says, but basically he says that if a person wants to bring forth his true self, he must utilize the faculty of thought. It all starts there with, this is the first step to discovering the self, using the faculty of thought to study, contemplate, and analyze. That's the first step, to really learn to control your thought, to quiet the mind, and to learn to think in the way that you choose to think. Number 2, closing the eyes, right? And he brings the example of Shema. That's when we say Shema Israel. You're trying to reconnect to the essence of creation. What is the essence of creation? God is everywhere. You are a soul, and therefore everything is good. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. God is a God of justice, but really He's merciful. Really, it's all love. It's at the end, everything's going to be one, right? It's return to true reality. Being in the dark. That's why meditating in the dark, that we do sometimes here, close the light, is based on the Rambam. He wrote that the person acquires most of his wisdom at night. Light enables us to connect with others, while darkness enables isolation. When a person is in the dark, he cannot bond with others. So he's focused on himself. So Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam, the son of the Rambam, writes in Hamaspik of the Hashem, he says that when a person wants to meditate, in order to uncover his spiritual energy within, it should preferably be done in the dark of night. Alternatively, it could be done during the day in a closed, dark room. Okay, so you understand that all those practices that sometimes we think it's the Indians or it's the Buddhists or it's the things that it's all Jewish. It's a Jewish meditation. It's all come from our source, the Torah. Meditation is a Jewish thing. So once a person attains serene thoughts, then he discovers quieter and even quieter thoughts until he senses his true self. This is a departure from thoughts to experience. It is existence, not merely thought. I mean, remember, right? It says in Gemara Brachos, our Chachamim, the great rabbis, how did they achieve the high level? How was so great? They were praying 9 hours a day. You don't pray 9 hours, you meditate 9 hours a day. 9 hours a day, they were focused, not moving from their place, in one place, with sometimes music, focused on their thoughts, and they were so happy because they were connecting, they had achieved prophecy like that. Because you know, we're not all supposed to be prophets. What's a prophet is someone who has the deepest connection with God. You use your soul to connect to God. That's what a prophet is, prophetess. And there were millions of prophets, schools of prophecy. But it's very hard. because it requires stopping to be constantly in a noise, in a constant mode of moving. You have to learn to stop, and it's the hardest thing for us because our body doesn't want to stop. Our body wants desires. Okay, we're almost done there. This is two more stuff. That's when Eliyahu Navi had chief prophecy. Look how they describe prophecy. Eliyahu Navi, it says in the pasuk, goes like that. He prepared himself to receive the divine presence in his soul. He received the divine presence in his soul. Right? Go out of the cave and stand on the mountain before Hashem. It continues. And there was a powerful wind, destroying mountains and smashing rocks. All this is happening in his thought, in the power of imagination. That's our chief prophecy. He was told prophetically that Hashem was not in that wind. And after the wind was a commotion. Hashem was not in that commotion. And after the commotion was a fire. Hashem was not in the fire. And after the fire was a subtle, quiet voice. And Hashem's presence was there. This teaches us that in order for the soul to be a receptacle for the light of Hashem, it cannot be in a state of commotion or in a state of fast movement like wind. One's soul must be in a state of calmness, like Kol Demama Daka, a subtle, quiet voice. We're ultimately striving to attain inner calm in the soul. We can never halt the soul's fluctuations, but they should be gentle. As long as the soul is not calm, it cannot hold the inner divine light that is available to us. So, according to the Torah, we must find pleasure in the center. Like the Rambam said, Derech Yeshara. On the surface, the center seems boring. It doesn't stimulate us. We're used to extreme stimuli. But at the center, this doesn't seem to be much of interest. By virtue of being the center, it has no extremes and nothing novel. So it seems to have nothing unique to offer. But in a deeper sense, that is precisely where a true experience can be found. The secret is oneg. In other words, dvekus, attachment to Hashem. It's to have consistency. That is how one can find sanctity and pleasure, not through something constantly shifting. The light we're seeking is ultimately the light of Hashem, which is eternal, timeless, and unchanging. The creations change, but Hashem is absolute, consistent, and eternal. You want to be like Hashem? Hashem is everywhere at the same time, all the time. You have to be like Hashem. Are you like Hashem? You are. God is. You are. Israel. No, whatever. That was something else. No.
I love that one.
What? Israel?
Israel.
Right, Israel. I was going to say that, but I thought... And last thing from the book. To attain total peace, we will need to calm the body as well as harmonize it with the soul. The body is calm through achieving a healthy balance of all its faculties. And that's the whole thing of Sfirot, where you have Sfirot, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, right? And all this needs to be harmonized and all that. The body is calm through achieving a healthy balance of all its faculties. Sometimes medicine is needed, and sometimes a particular diet is prescribed based on current medical knowledge. But at the same time, the soul must be part of the equation. Otherwise, one may be building in one area and destroying in another. So that's, I still recommend you read the whole book, because it goes more into details in all the parts, but it really teaches you what you are. How do you work as a human being? What is a soul? How can you be happy as a soul? Because if you think your body, you're never going to find true happiness. You're going to find limited amount of pleasure. It's true. So meditation enables us always to reconnect to the real pleasure, to the real you, to the big picture. So I go in the world and do this, and I help people, and I work, and I do this, and then I get confused. I'm a body, I'm this, I'm moving. I need that moment every day. Technically, we should do it through prayer. But even in our prayer, we're so involved with the world, where our mind doesn't. So we have to. That's why I wanted to make that meditation class, to learn really to separate from the world and to go in a real meditation. Because usually people pray, they don't really achieve that moment of meditation.
That's a big reason why I wasn't really consistent with it. 'cause I didn't feel anything. I was just reading and then
Right.
I don't know. It's
Yeah,
hard for me to really.
it is, bro. It's very hard. Any questions? It's quiet. It's cool. It's a good sign. Okay. So to be continued.